Have you ever wondered why some men cannot release the ghost of a woman once she has stepped out of his life? He may walk through crowded streets, take another's hand, or bury himself in work. Yet behind every smile lies the haunting image of the one he could not possess, the one who escaped his grip. To CarlJung, this is not merely a personal failure. It is an archetypal wound, a fracture of the ego when faced with the abyss of loss. What the man cannot let go of is not just the woman herself, but the part of his own soul she awakened, the anima he projected onto her, the mirror of his secret longings and his hidden shadow. When a man clings, it is not because he loves purely, but because his ego has been undone. The woman becomes more than a person. She becomes a symbol, a living emblem of his incompleteness. This is why obsession feels so unbearable to him. He is not only grieving her absence, but fighting against the collapse of the story he told himself about who he is. You may not realize it, but when you withdraw your presence, his entire psychological architecture trembles. The silence, the distance, the finality. These strike him like thunderbolts from the heavens, reminding him that control is an illusion and that love is not his to command. Jung once wrote that what we resist not only persists, it grows in power. The forbidden psychology of a man who can let go lies exactly here. The more he tries to banish the memory of you, the deeper it roots itself in his unconscious. He rewinds old conversations, stalks the echo of your laughter, recalls the way you moved through a room. In truth, he is chasing himself. For within you he glimpsed his anima, his eternal feminine, the muse that reveals the chasm inside his heart. And now that she is gone, he is left with nothing but that wound, raw and open. To the man's mind, losing a woman who embodied this archetype feels like death. Not death of the body, but death of identity. Seneca would have told him that no one truly owns another, and Epictetus would whisper that what is not within our control must be released without grief. Yet the ego does not listen to stoic wisdom. It thrashes, resists, clings, burns. A man in this state does not simply miss you. He seeks to reconstitute himself through the memory of you. The danger is that he confuses longing with love, obsession with intimacy, and regret with devotion. But what does this mean for you? It means that your silence, your absence, carries immense weight in his psychic theatre. To walk away is not merely to leave his bed or his home. It is to step into the role of initiator, the one who forces him into shadow work whether he wishes it or not. Every night he lies awake replaying the story, his mind gnawed by the forbidden what if. What if he had said the right words? What if he had swallowed his pride? What if he had given you what you truly desired? Each question tortures him because it is unanswerable. The truth is that no man can rewrite the past, but many men destroy themselves in the attempt. You must understand this. A man who cannot let go is ensnared not by you as a flesh and blood woman, but by the archetypal power you embodied. You became his mirror, his unfinished symphony, the reflection of all he secretly longs to reconcile within himself. Jung described this as the anima possession, when a man confuses his inner feminine with an outer woman and loses his soul to projection. This is why your detachment feels unbearable to him. It is as though you have stolen a part of his being, when in truth you only returned it to the shadows from which it came. To be the woman who triggers this depth of longing is not weakness, but power. The feminine mystery, when withdrawn, exposes the fragility of masculine pride. Marcus Aurelius urged men to accept impermanence, to greet loss with calm. Yet most do not. They rage, they plead, they spiral. And here lies the forbidden truth. The more he struggles, the more entangled he becomes. Like quicksand, his efforts to control the memory only deepen his entrapment. And so he lingers, obsessed, haunted, unable to surrender. He may attempt to replace you, but every new face feels hollow. He may try to drown his ache in distraction, yet in silence the wound returns. The forbidden psychology of a man who cannot let go is the psychology of unfinished initiation. He has not yet faced the shadow of abandonment, the terror of insignificance, the grief of realizing that no woman can rescue him from himself. For you, this is both a warning and a liberation. Do not confuse his obsession with proof of your worth, nor his refusal to let go as evidence of deep love. Obsession is hunger, not wholeness. Desire without self-awareness becomes a prison. If you allow his fixation to define you, you too may lose yourself in his shadows. But if you see it clearly, you will recognize it for what it is. The struggle of a man fighting his own reflection, a man staring into the abyss of his anima and mistaking it for you. There comes a moment when his longing becomes less about you and more about the echo of his own emptiness. The psychology of a man who cannot let go is the psychology of exile, banished not by your cruelty, but by his refusal to confront the mirror you once held up to him. When you departed, you took nothing tangible, and yet he feels stripped bare, as though you carried away his very essence. This is because the anima, once projected, feels like life itself. To reclaim it demands a descent into shadow, but most men would rather clutch the ghost of a woman than face the underworld of their own psyche. Jung spoke often of projection as the thief of individuation. When a man casts his unlived soul onto a woman, he lives as a beggar, dependent on her presence to feel whole. You may not have realized the burden you carried. Every glance, every silence, every touch became a currency in his internal economy of selfhood. And when that supply is cut off, desperation rises. He cannot let go because he believes that without you, he ceases to exist. The tragedy is that the wholeness he seeks was never in your hands. It was buried within his own unconscious, waiting to be integrated. Consider the strange rituals of men in grief. Some wander back through old messages, rereading lines with forensic obsession, searching for clues, like an archaeologist of lost intimacy. Some scroll endlessly through photographs, staring at frozen images as if they might whisper secrets. Others retreat into fantasies, building imagined conversations where you return, where you explain, where you undo the abandonment. These rituals are not about love. They are about control, about the ego's last attempt to dominate what has already slipped beyond its reach. He cannot let go because letting go would mean admitting powerlessness, and the male ego is trained from birth to fear nothing more than powerlessness. Your absence becomes a riddle he cannot solve. He tells himself stories. Perhaps you will return. Perhaps he still holds a hidden key. Perhaps destiny has not spoken its final word. And yet each day without you widens the wound. Seneca once wrote that true freedom comes when we stop desiring what is not ours. But the man who clings rejects this wisdom, because his obsession is no longer about desire. It is about identity. He has entangled who he is with the idea of you, and without that tether he floats into chaos. This is where feminine power reveals its quiet cruelty. You may not lift a finger, you may not utter a word, yet your silence becomes the loudest voice he has ever heard. The absence of response echoes louder than any affection could. Men often imagine power as force, as command, as conquest. But what he cannot bear is the power of detachment, the silent certainty of a woman who no longer explains, who no longer softens her departure with comfort. The void you leave speaks in a language older than words. It tells him that he was never in control, that love is never owned, that intimacy is never guaranteed. The forbidden psychology of this state is that obsession becomes its own intoxication. He begins to feed on the ache itself. Pain becomes proof that the connection was real. Regret becomes his devotion. Each sleepless night feels like a ritual of fidelity to the woman who is gone. He does not realize that he is chained, not to you, but to his own refusal to accept impermanence. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, urged the soul to embrace change as the natural order. But here lies the fracture. Men who cannot let go are at war with nature itself, denying the flow of time, denying death, denying endings. And yet, if you look closely, you will see that his torment carries a hidden truth. For in his inability to release, he reveals what most men bury, that he is terrified of insignificance. You are not simply a lover, you are his stage, his reflection, his witness. Without you, Who sees him? Who validates him? Who affirms his existence? The psychology of a man who cannot let go is the psychology of a soul that has not yet learned to stand naked, unseen, and whole. Until he faces that void, he will continue to circle the memory of you like a moth to a flame. What should you remember in this? That his inability to let go does not bind you. His longing is not a chain unless you allow it to be. To mistake his torment for devotion is to misunderstand the difference between projection and presence. Devotion is love rooted in self-awareness. Obsession is love shackled to ego. One liberates, the other imprisons. You are not responsible for his prison walls. You are only responsible for choosing whether you will walk into them or continue beyond their reach. In the silence of separation, the man's psyche undergoes a transformation that is both dangerous and illuminating. His obsession becomes an alchemy of the soul, though he rarely recognizes it as such. Jung would say that what he resists is precisely what will force him toward individuation. Yet most men, caught in the grip of loss, do not move toward growth. They spiral into the labyrinth of their own projections. They replay every encounter not to learn, but to cling, not to transform, but to preserve. The forbidden psychology here is that his grief disguises itself as loyalty, when in truth, it is resistance to evolution. He walks through the corridors of memory like a prisoner pacing his cell. Each word you once spoke becomes scripture. Every silence becomes an omen. He analyzes you as though decoding a sacred text, searching for hidden meaning, for reasons, for patterns. And in this ritual of endless dissection, he forgets the truth, that what he seeks cannot be found in you. It resides in the mirror he refuses to face. To let go would require him to confront the shadow, his fear of insignificance, his terror of being unloved, his hunger for validation. These demons wait for him, yet he runs from them by holding onto the phantom of you. For you, the woman, this unveils a paradox. You carry within you a force he cannot resist, not because of manipulation, but because of archetype. You embody the anima, his secret other half, the lost jewel buried in the unconscious. Your presence awakened it. Your absence torments him. But understand this clearly. You are not his anima. You are flesh, blood, spirit, a being in your own right. When he confuses you for the archetype, he chains himself to illusion. This is why his obsession feels so consuming, because he has given your image the weight of his own soul. Here is the forbidden danger. Obsession often masquerades as love, but it is fueled by fear. Fear of loss, fear of irrelevance, fear of facing the self. The longer he holds on, the more he believes that his yearning is proof of depth. But yearning without surrender is not depth, it is stagnation. The Stoics warned against this trap. Epictetus said, "When something is beyond your control, it is not yours." Yet the man who cannot let go treats you as though you remain his possession, even in absence. He does not realize that true love honors freedom, while obsession worships control. And so his torment deepens. He begins to see you everywhere, in the tilt of a stranger's head, in the echo of a song, in the fragrance of a room. His unconscious, saturated with your image, projects you onto the world itself. This is the haunting of anima possession. He cannot distinguish between the woman and the archetype, between memory and reality. His longing grows, not because of what you were, but because of what he cannot reclaim within himself. Meanwhile, you stand at a crossroads. Will you feel flattered by his obsession, or will you see through its shadow? Many women mistake this persistence for devotion, imagining it proof of irreplaceable value. But Jung would caution, what you witness is not love, but projection. And projection, while intoxicating, is never stable. The moment you step down from the pedestal he built, he may turn bitter, resentful, even destructive. For the pedestal was not for you, it was for the reflection of his own anima. The true danger lies in returning to him out of pity or seduction. To re-enter the prison of his obsession is to feed the ego that refuses to grow. Your silence, though painful for him, is the very medicine his soul requires. Only in emptiness can he face the abyss. Only in abandonment can he learn to see himself. It is the harshest gift, but also the most necessary. Remember this: detachment is not cruelty. Detachment is the act of refusing to participate in another's illusion. To walk away without explanation, to allow the silence to stretch, is often the most loving act, for it forces him to encounter the mirror he has avoided. He may rage against it, he may curse your name, but beneath the fury lies the seed of awakening. If he ever grows, it will be because you did not allow yourself to be swallowed by his shadow. And still, he will linger. He will test the edges of your absence, searching for cracks in your resolve. A message left unanswered. A song shared late at night. Small tokens like offerings to a vanished goddess. These gestures are less about reconnecting with you and more about soothing the panic of disconnection. His fear is primal, rooted in the infantile terror of losing the mother. And in this, you glimpse the depth of anima possession. He does not long only for the lover, but for the eternal feminine, the source of life itself. You cannot carry that weight. You cannot heal that hunger. To step into that role is to lose yourself. Instead, you must recognize that his inability to let go is a drama between him and his shadow, not between you and him. You are simply the stage upon which it unfolded. And that is why your greatest act of power is not to return, but to remain sovereign, to honor your own journey, to refuse the chains of his projection. Over time, the man who cannot let go begins to live in two worlds. Outwardly, he functions, wears the mask of normality, speaks of trivial things, even pursues other women. Yet inwardly, he is enslaved by the ghost of what has been lost. Jung would describe this as the psyche split between persona and shadow. His persona smiles, but his shadow bleeds. He pretends to move forward, yet secretly, he drags the coffin of memory wherever he goes. The forbidden psychology here is not simply grief, it is addiction. His mind feeds on the very pain that torments him. Each recollection of you, though it stings, becomes a form of sustenance. Regret transforms into ritual. He stokes the ache like one might stoke a fire, not realizing that the flames consume him. Why does he refuse to let go? Because letting go would extinguish the last ember that convinces him he once lived fully. You were not only a woman to him, you were proof that he had touched the divine. To release you feels like blasphemy, like denying that heaven ever opened before his eyes. The Stoics taught that suffering arises not from events, but from our judgment of them. Marcus Aurelius urged the mind to accept change as the fabric of existence. Yet a man in obsession resists this truth. His ego insists that what once was must remain forever, and when the world denies him, he grows bitter. This bitterness is dangerous, for it corrodes the soul from within. Sometimes it turns inward, manifesting as shame and depression. Other times it turns outward, erupting in blame, resentment, even vengeance. Both are symptoms of a man possessed not by love, but by his own shadow. And still, in quiet moments, something deeper stirs. The grief, though suffocating, whispers of transformation. Jung called this the work of individuation, to withdraw projection and reclaim the lost fragments of the soul. A man who cannot let go has been given an invitation, though it feels like torment. He is called to face his own incompleteness, to integrate the anima within, to discover that what he worshipped in you was always part of himself. Whether he answers this call depends on his courage. Most do not, but some, broken by longing, eventually turn inward. For the woman, this is both beautiful and cruel to witness. You may feel the weight of his gaze across time and distance. You may sense his energy, even when no words are spoken. His inability to release you casts a shadow over your own freedom. But remember this, you are not the savior of his soul. You are the spark that lit the fire, not the one who must burn in it. If you return to heal him, you will be consumed. If you pity him, you will be drawn into his abyss. The only path that preserves your wholeness is detachment, the refusal to be swallowed by another's unconscious battle. What makes this psychology forbidden is that few dare to speak of it openly. Obsession is romanticized, painted as passion, as eternal devotion. But Jungian analysis reveals its darker truth. It is possession, ego clinging to projection, the refusal to evolve. And yet, paradoxically, it is through this very torment that the soul has the chance to awaken. Pain is the threshold, regret is the teacher, silence is the crucible. Imagine him lying awake in the night, staring at the ceiling, replaying your laughter in his mind. To him, this is unbearable suffering. But beneath it lies the possibility of rebirth. If he dares to step into the silence fully, if he allows himself to be stripped of illusion, he may one day discover what the Stoics already knew, that no one belongs to another, that freedom is the highest form of love, that letting go is not death, but liberation. And for you, this is the hidden wisdom. Never mistake a man's inability to let go as the highest proof of your worth. True empowerment lies not in how much someone suffers over you, but in how much you can remain whole without their validation. His obsession is his crucible, not your crown. You are not exalted because he clings. You are exalted because you walk freely, untethered, sovereign in your silence. This is the sacred paradox. The more you detach, the deeper his obsession grows, because you embody the mystery he cannot control. Yet the more he obsesses, the more you must guard your freedom, lest his shadow drag you into the labyrinth. To remain sovereign is to honor your own soul, to refuse to become an archetype in someone else's unfinished story. There comes a point when the weight of his longing begins to distort his very perception of reality. The man who cannot let go lives as if under a spell, enchanted by an image that no longer belongs to flesh and blood, but to myth. Jung would call this the danger of inflation, when the unconscious overwhelms the ego and consumes it. You cease to be a woman in his eyes. You become symbol, goddess, destroyer, savior, tormentor. He cannot see you as you are, because his obsession has turned you into a vessel for everything he cannot face within himself. This is the forbidden edge of male psychology. Desire transforms into projection, and projection hardens into worship or resentment. He worships the goddess who abandoned him, yet resents the woman who dared to walk away. He craves your return, but despises the silence that proves you will not come back. This split tears him apart, because the psyche cannot serve both love and hatred without collapse. And so he swings between extremes, adoring you in one breath, condemning you in the next. What he cannot grasp is that both are masks for the same truth. He is at war with himself, not with you. To understand this torment, you must recognize how deeply male ego depends on possession. The masculine archetype seeks to conquer, to claim, to make permanent what is inherently transient. When you left, you shattered that illusion. You exposed the fragility of his empire, the futility of control. And in that shattering, his ego bled. What he cannot let go of is not simply your presence, but the story of himself he constructed around you. Without you, he must face the emptiness of his own identity. And for many men, this confrontation feels worse than death. The Stoics would have urged him to accept impermanence as the nature of life. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that those he loved could vanish by evening. To love with awareness of loss, that was wisdom. But the man who clings does not love with awareness. He loves with desperation. He cannot bear to hold love lightly, to let it breathe, to let it come and go. His grasp suffocates, and when the object slips away, he clutches the absence even more fiercely than he once held the presence. And here is the paradox you must never forget. Your absence teaches him more than your presence ever could. In staying, you may have softened his ego, soothed his fears, confirmed his illusions. In leaving, you forced him into confrontation with the truth. It is the silence, the withdrawal, the unbearable void that becomes his teacher. He resists it, curses it, denies it. Yet if he ever grows, it will be because he once loved a woman who refused to return. For you, this knowledge is both burden and liberation. You may feel the gravity of his fixation, the psychic pull that reaches across distance. Yet you must remember, you are not responsible for the lessons his soul must learn. His inability to let go is not yours to resolve. To step back into his arms out of pity is to rob him of the crucible that could transform him. To sacrifice your freedom for his healing is to betray your own soul. The feminine that knows its power does not rescue. It allows the man to descend into his own shadow, even if he despises her for it. There is danger, too, in romanticizing his obsession. Many women, intoxicated by the idea of being unforgettable, confuse fixation with devotion. But obsession is not love, it is the refusal to evolve. To be the center of his torment may feel flattering, but it is not sacred. Sacred love liberates both souls. Obsession enslaves them. If you let his suffering define your worth, you risk becoming as bound to his shadow as he is. True feminine power is the ability to walk away without needing to be remembered. And yet his longing still echoes. He will imagine your face in moments of silence, feel your absence in the hollow of every embrace, search for fragments of you in other women and find only disappointment. This ache may follow him for years. Sometimes it will harden him. Other times, it may finally break him open. But whether he transforms or decays is not your responsibility. The forbidden psychology of a man who cannot let go belongs to him, not to you. And so you continue forward, untouched by the weight of his obsession. The feminine mystery is not in being clung to. It is in being free. The woman who knows her worth does not tether herself to another's shadow. She allows men to wrestle with their projections, their wounds, their egos. She does not explain. She does not return. She does not carry what was never hers to bear. She embodies what Jung and the Stoics both knew, that wholeness comes not from possession, but from detachment, from silence, from the courage to walk away. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.